I'm now going to continue my video series on Henry Ward Beecher and his sermons by covering Satan's arrows. When Paul referenced the armor of God, he wasn't referencing its aesthetic value. He was referencing its strength. Remember, Paul modeled the armor of God after Roman armor. So what did a Roman shield look like? It wasn't some handheld shield that you flung around aimlessly. And you see this in video games all the time. You take your little shield like this, you fling it around like this, and hope the heck it knocks off whatever's coming at you. No, it wasn't like that. Instead, it was a full-body shield. Now, let me give you an illustration of this. It would be about maybe half or three-quarters of your body, and what you'd do is you'd hold it like this, and you would duck down behind it, and it was a full-body shield. It protected you. Okay? As a matter of fact, a Roman soldier could easily hide behind his shield and never be harmed. In the same way, a Christian can hide behind the shield of God and not be harmed. When people think of arrows, they think of old cowboy and Indian movies. Gee, dodge the arrow and you're safe. But in the first century Judea, arrows were a little different. So what was the difference? In those days, arrows were dipped in tar and set ablaze. So if the arrow or the fire didn't put you in peril, then the tar would poison you. So it was very important you didn't get struck with one of these arrows. Either way, you didn't last very long. So that's what Paul was referencing when he spoke of fiery arrows. Sometimes Satan's weapons will terminate you quickly. But remember, Satan has his own version of tar. It's called sin. Not always does sin terminate you quickly. Ask anyone who constantly consumes intoxicating substances. They'll tell you. Perfect example. Anyway, let's go on here. In ancient times, retreat was not an option. Opposing soldiers who came to your town often were led by brutal dictators, and the dictator's oppression was often so bad that it would be better to perish in battle than to be oppressed by the dictator. That is just as true when it comes to Satan. Remember, you can't run from Satan or his tar-covered fiery arrows. Okay? That's not even possible. So running is not an option. Obviously, you don't want to be poisoned with Satan's sin tar. And your reflexes aren't fast enough to deflect Satan's arrows with a sword. So your only hope is to employ God's shield of faith. How does the shield of faith actually work? First, we have to define faith. Imagine the soldier on the battlefield. He is in the heart of battle. Many members of his platoon are now scattered across the battlefield, unable to help him. He's low on ammo. Even though he can't see the cavalry that is trying to rescue him, he has faith that they will arrive before he perishes. That's real faith. Faith is believing that God will rescue you from Satan's fiery darts, okay, even though you can't see God or his angels. That's real faith right there. According to the 11th chapter of Hebrews, faith is the substance of things hoped for. Does that mean that faith has a physical form? Can it be seen? Can it be heard or even touched? Absolutely not. If it could, it would be limited by measurements. You can't measure faith. Faith cannot be measured. Simple as that. You know you have faith, but you can't measure it. Okay? Faith is the evidence of things not seen. Faith proves that the power of God exists and lives inside of you. You can't see faith, you can't hear faith, and you can't touch it. But its existence proves the power of God in your life. In the Bible, Paul speaks of a truth that you can't see, hear, smell, taste, or even touch. This is the truth of God's Word. You can find honor in God's Word, but can you see it? Can you touch it? You can read it in the Bible. Biblical honor can fill your soul, but you can't measure it. You can't buy it. You can't sell it. It has a spiritual value which is priceless, but it has no monetary value. Though honor doesn't have a physical shape, it does exist. If you ask a non-Christian what honor and integrity are worth, they will tell you that it will help. Okay, they will tell you that it will help you get ahead in business. That's true. But if you ask a Christian what honor and integrity are worth, they will give you a completely different answer. They will tell you that honor and integrity binds family relationships. It binds marriages. It binds friendships. Honor and integrity is worth more than gold itself. I kid you not on this. Some people possess the shield of faith, but they never deploy it. They know what faith is, but they never use it. Did Roman soldiers take their shield with them to battle? You betcha. Did they use their shields? You betcha. Then why do some Christians leave their shields at home? I have absolutely no idea why. Why don't some Christians deploy their shields when they are in the heart of battle? This is something I'd like for you to ponder. The first step in deploying your shield is praying to God. That's a fact. The second step in deploying your shield is believing that God will answer your prayer. He may answer it in a positive way, a negative way, but He'll always answer it. Okay? The third step in deploying your shield is not listening to the voice of doubt. Well, I don't think God will answer my prayer. Wrong answer. God always answers prayer. He may not answer it the way you want Him to, but He will always answer prayer. The voice of doubt is the voice of Satan. Satan doesn't want you to believe in God, so he's going to do everything he can to fill your heart with doubt. That's true. Sometimes the voice of doubt can be heard inside your head. Then there are times it can be heard from other people. Yeah, the people around you say, "Oh, I don't think God will answer your prayer. He's too busy of a guy. Why would He answer something like that?" Don't listen to him. God always answers prayer. He may not answer it the way you want, but He'll always answer it. Whether the voice of doubt speaks externally or internally, do not listen to it. Listen to God instead. Now, have you ever asked yourself, why were castles in ancient times built on high ground? Why were they so tall? It was to make it more difficult for opposing forces to successfully conquer people living in them. Think about how the archers down below would have to fire their arrows to get at you. See what I mean? God Himself illustrated this when He instructed Solomon on how to build God's temple. If you examine the place that the temple was built, you will see that it was built on one of the highest places in Israel. God's enemies had to struggle to fight Him. And when God's presence is in the temple, His enemies are always scattered to the four corners of the earth. Of course, now God is just all over the earth. So you don't even have to show up at His temple to get His help. If you live a carnal life, then you're living on the low ground. You're easily conquered by Satan's forces. But if you live your life employing the shield of faith that God has given to you, then you're immune to Satan's attacks. Have you ever seen a vulture? I'm sure if you search YouTube long enough, you'll find videos of vultures. They're everywhere. Watch some of these videos. Then think about this. What do vultures seek? They seek dead things. When people seek intoxicating substances to take them away from their daily woes, are they any different from vultures? I don't think so. When people seek adultery because they are struggling in their marital relationships, they are no different than vultures. When people engage in fraudulent acts to obtain wealth, they are no different than vultures. Never become a vulture. Deploy the shield of faith that God graciously gave to you. If you're looking at God, you're not looking at sin. And where is God? He's above you. So tell your heart to seek the glory of God by searching the heavens. If you do, your heart will find God's presence. Alright, so imagine for a moment that you were in a castle. Okay, imagine for a moment that you were a castle guard in medieval times. Suddenly your castle is attacked by a foreign invader. So you climb to the top of the castle wall with your bow and arrow. You use the ancient Roman technique of dipping your arrows in tar before igniting them with a torch. Then you aim your arrow down to the approaching invading army. At this point, gravity is working in your favor. You can clearly see the enemy approaching, so it's easy for you to aim your arrow. And the wind will have little effect on your arrow because gravity will cause your arrow to travel faster and more accurately, so you have the advantage. Now let's look at the invading army. They also dip their arrows in tar before they ignite them. But do they have any advantage? Absolutely not. Gravity is working against them. Their arrows move slower as they ascend, because remember, gravity is working on them as they go up. And also remember, the wind, if there's any, will have an effect on those arrows, causing them to go off course. And the soldiers will have a more difficult time aiming their arrows because they are trying to see the soldiers on the castle walls. So they are at a disadvantage. If human beings live their lives in the flesh, then Satan is on the castle wall firing his sin arrows directly on human beings. But if you align your life with Christ, you're the one standing on God's castle wall. Then Satan has to fire his arrows up to you. That makes his arrows less effective. And if you deploy your shield of faith, Satan has a really tough time firing his arrows at you. Keep that in mind. In our day and age, people pursue pleasure passionately. It's as if they have a passion fever. Some people associate passion with fire. And that's the theme of this entire video. I wonder if some of the fire is surrounding Satan's arrow tar. Maybe you should think about that before you ignite your next cigarette. Maybe you should think about it before you open your next can or bottle of alcohol. Maybe you should think about that before you pursue an unhealthy relationship with a potential sexual partner. When I was young, I stayed close to my home. I never worried about a curfew. I was often in bed sleeping before the curfew even began. It's true I had few friends, but I didn't also have to worry about peer pressure. When I was very young, I was taught to ignore the ignorant words of others, so I was rarely offended by the taunts of my peers. Of course, some would argue that it made me appear insensitive at times. That's true. But my ability to ignore what people said to me kept me from engaging in physical confrontations on a regular basis. So I truly benefited from my early teaching. Perhaps people reading this or watching this right now will benefit from the teachings that I'm giving them right now. They could benefit from my early teachings, and I hope so. Parents are very quick to hide things from their children. My parents weren't like that, but a lot of people are. They won't let kids watch certain movies or play certain video games or participate in certain events. But they never tell their children why they can't watch those movies or play those video games or participate in those events. Yet they are very quick to give these children a Bible. Now think about this for a second. Of course they don't explain the contents of the Bible to them either. Or worse yet, they hand them an edited version of the Bible that doesn't contain anything controversial. How does that help a kid? Have you ever really read the Bible? I mean, there's as many scandals and controversies in the Bible as you would find on any soapbox opera. I guarantee you that. But do these parents ever explain that to these kids? Nope. Just keep in mind this. In this day and age, if you don't tell children about real life, the internet will do it. If you don't do it, they will. Oh, how I hear the parents say, I watch my children 24 hours a day. I make sure to see whatever they're looking up on the internet. Yeah. I wonder about that. Can you stay awake 24 hours a day, every day? Of course not. Children are clever. Even the smartest parents in the world can't keep their children out of mischief 24 hours a day. And if you strip your house of all the televisions and all the computers and all the handheld devices and radios, these kids will learn what they want to learn eventually. They'll either befriend somebody with all these wonderful gizmos and gadgets, or they'll read about these things in a library. Remember, you parents send them to the library. You think your kids aren't going to figure this stuff out? Get real. And how often do kids go searching through the house for books that you have in your house? Yeah. You may have the very books in your house that will tell them all the things that these kids would want to learn. Even though you don't want them to learn it, they'll learn it anyway. So I say, instead of hiding everything from your children, you need to teach them about the shield of faith. You need to teach them how to deploy the shield. In other words, you need to teach them the contents of the Bible. Parents should be the primary teachers of their children. Why are we allowing the school system to be the moral teachers of our children? Have you seen how they teach morals in school today? Yeah. Remember this, the school system teaches them for a few hours a day. What happens when the kids get home? Do you teach them? They are more apt to listen to you over anybody else. But if you never speak, they'll listen to them. It's up to parents to teach the rest of the time. Parents are supposed to spend more time with their children than the school system. So if you're a parent, teach your children well. Don't hide the contents of the Bible from your children. Tell them how it was. The good, the bad, the indifferent. Let me tell you something. It has worked for millions of Jewish kids for centuries. And if it worked for them, it should work for you. So what is Satan's tar? One form of this tar is envy. The more you focus on envy, the more it will burn your soul. When you deploy the shield of faith, Satan's envy tar has little or no effect on you. So how do you deploy the shield of faith? Do you wish Satan's envy tar to go away? Just wishing it won't make it go away. If you think you can ignore Satan's envy tar, think again. The tar must be removed, not ignored. After all, you can't ignore a cold or a fever. They aren't going to go away. Neither will envy. Only God's hands and His soul and His spirit can remove Satan's envy tar from your body. Ask God to place His hands into your heart and remove Satan's tar. It's the only way that Satan's infection can be properly removed. And that's all I've got to say on this subject. I know I was kind of looking at the right here. What I did was I posted all this on Facebook over the summer. Now I'm getting a chance to read all this to you. For you guys, if you're not already on my Facebook fan page, go to my featured video on this YouTube channel. Look at the description and you'll see a hyperlink. You will actually see a full-blown hyperlink to my Facebook fan page. There are times when I don't get a chance to make a presentation like this, so I'll write the material out on my Facebook fan page, then I'll make a presentation like this. So, I encourage you, I implore you, to go look on this Facebook fan page, go through the postings, you'll see all this for yourself, and eventually I will take the time, I'll read it to you like I just did tonight, and you can see it for yourself. Alright. I hope you have a blessed week. I hope to be able to sit down one of these days real soon and do this again. In the meantime, you guys have a great week, and I will tell you more in a future video, so I want you to stay tuned.